Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here, and you are very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, find a pew, sit down, and actually, if you don't know what pew means, it just means a chair. So sit down and relax. Yes, I love Star Wars, but Disney's handling of this franchise has been a monumental disaster. I don't understand what they were thinking of. Now, in terms of the films, specifically, it's not about the films. It's about their handling of who was going to make the films. For example, J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy have a lot to answer for here. J.J. Abrams, for me, did a really good Star Wars movie in The Force Awakens. It sets up a lot of things. It teases a lot of things that excites you for the next movie. So what does Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams do? Instead of J.J. Abrams writing and directing the first one, the second one, and the third one, he bows out of the second one. So they bring in Rian Johnson in, right? So Ryan's excited, right? He's going, oh, I'm doing Star Wars. I can do whatever I want. This is great. Who cares about The Force Awakens? I'm just going to do my thing here. He was told to do his thing. This is the problem. The situation with The Last Jedi isn't Rian Johnson's fault. He was brought in to make his own movie, to write his own movie, to direct his own movie, so he did. And then they wanted to bring Colin Trevorrow in to do exactly the same thing. How can you do that? How can you do that with a trilogy? How can you? You need one vision. JJ's vision in The Force Awakens for this trilogy was a good one. J.J. Abrams comes back, writes and directs The Last Jedi, and he's doing the same with this final one, but he needed some persuading to even do that. The problem is at the people making the decision. You can't have 3 different cooks spoiling the broth. You know, it's true that George Lucas didn't direct The Empire Strikes Back, and he didn't direct Return of the Jedi, but it was his story being adapted. It was him making sure that the beats that he'd set up were being done. This is not what was going on with The Last Jedi. And this is, for me, you see, my issues with The Last Jedi are not about the political issues. No, I don't care about any of that. For me, it's just a simply very, very underwhelming Star Wars film. That's it. It underwhelmed me. By the time we get to the end bit on the Falcon, I'm just thinking, that's it. That was my attitude. And it did underwhelm me and it did disappoint me. But I don't blame Rian Johnson for that. Rian Johnson came in to do a thing, to do his thing, right? And this is where it all went wrong. So I love Colin Trevorrow, right? I love Colin Trevorrow. But as I say, you can't have 3 different writer-directors constructing one trilogy. It doesn't make sense. How is this going to work? Now, you're going to argue with me and say, what about the MCU? Loads of different directors, different writers. Yes. But whose tune are they all singing by? Kevin Feige's. That's the difference, right? Because basically, Kathleen Kennedy must be, although he's doing, running the Star Wars franchise, she's not a storyteller. She's not. She's a producer, and she's a really damn good producer. But she wasn't in charge of running the story arc for 7, 8, and 9. That wasn't her position. She brought in J.J. Abrams, which was a brilliant idea. We all assumed he'd be doing this trilogy, and he didn't, because J.J.'s got too many fingers in too many pies. But the point is, J.J. is a genius. He's proven it again and again. He comes in, does all these 3 films. We never had the problem with The Last Jedi. Solo would never have flopped. And the Star Wars franchise run by Disney will be in a more stronger position than it is now. So now we've got JJ back. We've just seen a damn fine trailer for The Rise of Skywalker. Even the title really excites me. Now, I know a lot of people still want to be negative about Star Wars, but the truth of the matter is, yes, you heard Palpatine cackling the end. Of course, they need to throw everything at this film to win over us fans again. You should be happy about that. It's no good saying, oh, this makes me angry because this should have been the trailer for episode 8. It doesn't matter. It's gone now. J.J. Abrams needs to get people excited about Star Wars again. This film needs to at least make, over $1 billion and could potentially make a couple of billion if the rest of the marketing is as good as this. J.J. Abrams, as I say, is a damn fine storyteller. My only issue with J.J. that he walked away from episode 8. It was a stupid thing to do. It didn't make sense. This should have been his focus. At the end of the day, Star Wars. So I don't blame Rian Johnson for The Last Jedi. I blame Kathleen Kennedy and I blame J.J. Abrams for thinking that they could have 3 different directors for 3 different films in one trilogy. It just doesn't make sense. Because, yes, as I said, yes, you had George Lucas directing A New Hope, Irving Kershner directing Return of the Jedi, and you had the other guy, the Welsh guy, was it Marco? I forgot his name anyway. So you had 3 different directors, but they weren't writing the story. They were just directing the movie. So there's a big difference there. That George Lucas was still running that trilogy. It was his vision. Do you get what I mean? What they did with this just didn't make any sense. So now they're clambering at the 11th hour to give us a brilliant movie. I think The Rise of Skywalker will be a damn good movie. It will at least be as good as The Force Awakens, maybe better. These are listen, right, the new characters introduced are JJ's characters, right? That's the good thing here, and he can wrap it up. Look, so far this hasn't been a great trilogy. Disney's handling of Star Wars hasn't been great. But when you get a position where you can't sell the toys, you can't sell the merchandise, it's very similar to what's going on with Doctor Who right now. You're in a bit of a muddle, and you've got to save the day, and they're trying to do that. I agree about them taking a long break after this film. I want Weiss and Burnoff, the Game of Thrones lads, to really be able to do their own thing. Not just to do their own trilogy, but to actually construct this franchise. And I think the best way to do this is for them to look at the hundreds of Star Wars novels out there and adapt one of them. Then adapt another one. And, do trilogies and standalones. That's the way to go. Because Weiss and Burnoff, right, have shown how good they are at adapting somebody else's story. That's what they basically did with Game of Thrones. It has worked, and it's worked on a massive scale. So that is their strength. So I hope they can take their time and plot a course for Star Wars, but not going over old ground. So what do I think about The Rise of Skywalker? I think they are going to leave something hanging. I think they're literally going to set up Benioff and Weiss's next trilogy, right? So I think Vader is coming back. In one form or the other, Vader is coming back. Either it's Kylo as the next Darth Vader. They could absolutely flip it around and have Rey as the next Darth Vader. People might get their knickers in a twist because we've got a female Darth Vader. That really doesn't matter. But I do believe Anakin's coming back for sure. I think we will definitely see Hayden Christensen back as Anakin. So could the original Darth Vader return for good? That's a very interesting point. Darth Vader is the biggest selling point Disney have for Star Wars right now. Whoever I talk, all my fellow Star Wars fans, whoever I talk about, Vader in Rogue One, wasn't he awesome? Yes, he was. Vader was the thing we all loved, the thing we could all agree on when we were growing up watching Star Wars. Yeah, we loved Luke, Leia, Han, but very rarely it was actually the villain of the film that stood out the most. And he's great. And really, I'm not a prequel hater. I love the fact that George told his story, and I think he told his story in a good way. Did that necessarily lend those films to being individual great movies? No. But it was a great trilogy. It was a great prequel trilogy because it told the story that George wanted to tell. That's just my opinion, by the way. I'm sure I'm going to get hated for that. So, yes, I do love Star Wars. I do think The Last Jedi was underwhelming. I thought Solo was an okay movie. And in a way, I'm sad they're not going to continue that story. But that's life. Things don't work out sometimes. But I believe that this film is exciting. That trailer is exciting. I'm excited and I'm positive about Star Wars again. I love J.J. Abrams. I'm glad he's back on board. and let's see what we're going to get with the future marketing, what we're going to get with this film. I support Star Wars because I love this franchise. I grew up with it and I want it to be back on track. Let's find out if it will. As time goes on, we are going to find out when this film is released at Christmas. We are going to see what's going to happen, how they wrap up this story. It is a very vital situation, and it's an important situation. J.J. Abrams has been tasked with something massive. He's been tasked with literally saving Star Wars, wrapping this trilogy up, and leaving it in a good place for Bernoff and Weiss, who will do their own story, their own trilogy. Whether it will involve the Skywalkers, it depends how this film ends. I love the title, I love what I saw, and I'm pumped about Star Wars again, and that really makes me happy.